inviting me aboard.
Gene Roddenberry is the creator and producer of Star Trek.
Mass communications is our language today, and we can't say, well, let's not really talk about anything serious on television.
Started as a groundbreaking science fiction show and then was spun off into 7 TV series, 2 animated series, and 15 films.
It seems logical, Captain. The Horde has a very logical mind.
Bones, they'll show us medical advances, miracles you never dreamed possible.
His son, Rod, is now carrying on his father's legacy.
Back in 1966, it was really, I think, one of the driving forces behind what gave people excitement about the space program.
Started hearing the fans telling me about how Star Trek touched them, it inspired them.
Risk is our business. That's what the Starship is all about. That's why we're aboard her.
You know, this exists because of a TV show, and I'm not exaggerating. Martin Cooper, the man who invented the mobile phone, said he built it because he saw it on Star Trek. He saw Captain Kirk flip open a communicator and thought, hey, I can make that real. The iPad, it started as a prop in Star Trek 2. Video calls, Star Trek. Voice assistants, Star Trek again. Props became products. Fiction became multi-trillion-dollar industries. So here's the question. What's a vision of the future that excites you? What stories offer humanity a hopeful, compelling, and abundant vision of what's to come? We're putting up $3 million in prize money plus millions in film financing to make your movie. Our program, in partnership with the XPRIZE Foundation, Google, and Ranged Media Partners, is called the Future Vision XPRIZE. And it's one of the world's largest competition to address humanity's greatest need, hope. Create a trailer or short film, 3 minutes or less. Show us and the world your vision of the future. That vision could become the next blueprint for all of humanity. Find out more and register at futurevisionxprize.com.
All right. Yeah, Rod. I'd like to welcome my very good friends, Peter Diamandis and Rod Roddenberry. And as you can surmise, this panel is going to touch on Star Trek, which is
a little bit.
Well, it's a little bit, but also, you know, we're here to talk about
optimism,
right? And hope for the future, which is the story of Star Trek as well. That's what makes Star Trek special. But the thing that really, you know, triggered me as far as like knowing that I wanted to put this specific panel together for this event was the XPRIZE award that you were just, you know, the video just described. I think it's a great opportunity for artists. And I figured we'd maybe start with you describing a little more about it, how it came to be, your vision for it. I think that would be a great place for us to begin the.
Yeah, happily, Jules. So I have 2 14-year-old boys. When I was a kid, I was born in the 60s. And my life got started from 2 things. Number 1 was the landing on the moon, right? Showed us what humanity could do right now. The second thing was that scientific documentary called Star Trek that showed us where humanity is going. And those 2 things lit my soul on fire. And everything I've ever done, I'm 29 companies later, started from that. And it just gave me a target, it inspired me, gave me purpose. My concern today is that there's a lot of growing fear in the world as a result of the rapid pace of AI from 2 things. People are uncertain about their future. They're uncertain about whether they're going to get a job, you know, whether they're going to be able to continue in their employment. All this uncertainty because the future for them is something that they don't feel and understand. The second reason people feel fear is that the majority of all Hollywood products are dystopian. I hate to say that, but it's killer robots and rogue AIs. And if that's what the future that you see, if that's what's being painted for you, and you believe it, why would you ever want to live in that future? Why wouldn't you want to stop things dead in their track? So it's over the last couple of years that this has become more and more clear. I reached out to my dear friend Rod over here, who I think absolute world of, and we had a conversation about how do we inspire a new generation of Star Trek films? How do we inspire a new generation of movies and films that are hopeful, compelling, and show an abundant future that you go, yes, that's the future I want to live in. That's the future I want for my kids, right? Without a target, you'll miss it every time. Without a vision, the people will perish. Whatever parable you want to use. So we need to do that, and we can. So we put up a global film competition in partnership with the Roddenberry Foundation, with Google Range Media, Mark Benioff at Salesforce is our presenting sponsor, Kathy Wood at ARK Invest, a number of extraordinary individuals. And that competition is up and running. We have about now up almost to $4 million in prize money, but with the right sale, we're also partnering with Republic Film, so people can invest in it. Our goal is to have $15 million of capital to make at least one feature film. I'll keep fundraising, it's what I do, and if I can get to 2 full features. But the other thing is all of the content is going to be on YouTube. We're flooding YouTube with positive visions of tomorrow. Really important.
And I just want to say another very important part of this is nothing has to be AI.
Yeah.
You can submit it in any format you want. What AI does is it levels the playing field.
Yeah.
So no longer will the big studio put in something that you could never do at home, because now you can.
If I could just 1 second, Tyler Donahue is in the audience. Tyler, stay up 1 second. Tyler is running the project with us at XPRIZE. And so if you're interested in registering or if you want to play with us in amplifying this, please see Tyler, who will be here this afternoon. Yep.
Amazing. Well, I think the interesting part for me is the vision part of it, right? I mean, it's, of course, obviously the prize money is huge, and I think it's an incredible opportunity for artists. And we are obviously some of the things we're showing today. I mean, and I think even in general, I mean, a lot of my vision for OTOY is like create tools. Individual artists, small studios can level the playing field. But the vision part, the optimism part, I think is really special. How do you see, like, what's a range of stories? I mean, I feel like Star Trek's of course a template for that. But what kind of range of stories do you expect to see submitted? Are there any like rules? Like what is the level of like optimism and or the threshold or framework that you're looking for to judge these things once they do come in?
Well, I mean, I know I don't want to put any limits on what anyone puts in for me and what I'm expecting. It really does go back to the optimism, and dare I say, it has to in some way be sci-fi, because what we're trying to do is look at a better future for humanity. But it can't be Star Trek, clearly.
Yeah.
It needs to be original content. But as Peter and I have discussed, and I'm sure they've had many discussions about this.
Planet Trek, no, Galaxy Trek.
But we need to know where it's coming from in terms of the writer, the creator of this. They have to explain their idea, the reasoning, the rationale, how humanity got to wherever it is in their story. It can't just be, here's an AI story and it's about a positive future. I mean, there's going to have to be heart. As we've discussed earlier, there's more to story than just
one of the things that you've been a stand for from the beginning of this conversation, which I completely respect, and you are my cornerstone for this, which is we're not interested in someone taking a fully AI-generated script and creating an AI-generated film. There has to be the human element. We're going to be digging into why this story, where'd this come from inside you, right? The best stories are moved by deep human emotion, purpose, and experience.
Yeah. And one of the best things, if you go back to the, I'm going to reference Star Trek because that's my background, but one of the original writer's guides for it, my father has a section on believability. Yeah. And believability wasn't just technology in the future. It certainly had that where they extrapolated from current day technology, but it was in character development. It was how a character would behave in a scenario. I think a lot of people and a lot of shows kind of, in my opinion, miss that. Yeah. And you want to be able to connect and identify with these human characters and have them react in a way that you would either identify with or aspire to identify with. That was one of the great things about some of the Star Trek. You could look at that future and those characters were, dare I say, I hate saying the word better, but better versions of who we are now.
Yeah, no, I mean, your dad's vision on that was pretty succinct as far as, this progress. Of course, there's like a World War III somewhere in like the next 6 months that we have to get through in Star Trek.
We'll just.
Yeah. But, yeah, I mean, I'm sorry, Star Trek nerd, But in terms of this progress of humanity and so, I mean, it is something that is definitely, we need more stories like that. And I think that also the plausibility of on a level of the fact that this is a possible future for us. I mean, that's something that is special with Star Trek. I mean, you watch that and you're like, this could be where we end up. I mean, it's weird that this, space shuttle, the OB-101 or whatever, was named after the ship 10 years after the show. I mean, it feels like there's this deep interconnect between the vision that your dad had and that's been continued for Star Trek in the real world. But I think it's missing more of this optimistic, these optimistic stories. So.
And I want to just put a fine point on what Peter said earlier. The word inspiration, I think Trevor and I, who've worked at Roddenberry Entertainment for over 20 years now, it's Star Trek inspired people. Listen, it's entertaining. I'm not going to try to paint it as something that you can only learn from. It is enjoyable, it's entertaining, it sneaks in a message, but it also presents this world that you want to be a part of. And I think that is what's behind what we are trying to do, is trying to make people say, oh, that's a future I want to live in. I want to change my behavior. I want to work towards that goal.
Yeah.
That's what Star Trek did.
I could not agree more. I mean, I think if we're going to define what it should or shouldn't be, Star Trek was a world in which technology worked in partnership with humanity. It did not oppress humanity, right? It's an important distinction. And so, that's what I think we're doing with the Roddenberry Foundation, what we're doing with Google and Salesforce, is to inspire people that the tech can help you dream higher than ever before. We expect there to be storylines across every technology, maybe in the blockchain space, obviously in robots and AI, it could be longevity in biotech, it could be any of these or combinations thereof. There's no restrictions. It has to be a great movie, right? Our goal is that it's a film that is a huge success in a global release. Otherwise, it doesn't do us any good. This is a carrier wave for optimism.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I will say that one of the things that people may not know is there's been XPRIZEs related to Star Trek stuff, like building a real Star Trek tricorder. I mean, I'd love to have you guys talk about that, because I feel that is very much in line with the spirit of this. It's that things in Star Trek in our lifetimes that we thought may have been further out have become possible. The iPad, which was something that Picard had in the 90s, seemed so far out, and it was 2010 that it came out, and you have the tricorder XPRIZE and others. I mean, I'd love to talk about that a little bit.
I just want to gush about Peter for a second here. I met Peter back in
man crush about
96, 90, something like that. It was the second launch of what's now called the Ansari XPRIZE.
That would have been 94.
94. And here was this guy who...
I'm sorry, that was... The second launch was 2004.
2004, sorry,
yeah,
2004.
Yeah.
This guy who goes out and says, I'm going to create a competition of getting humans into space, when it was pretty much only NASA and ESA and Russia. But it was incredible that this guy thought he could do that. And Peter's never backed down from a challenge that I'm aware of. Seems to be invigorated by someone saying that can't be done. Mm-hmm. I don't think that's in your vocabulary. And has since that Ansari XPRIZE launch, successful launch, twice up, 100 kilometers and down.
Yes.
That spurred on our new space paradigm here. And since then, they've had, I don't know how many prizes, but you can go into that, but it's just incredible.
Yeah, we've launched 32 XPRIZes, about $600 million in competitions that have driven about $30 billion in research and development by all the teams across everything, carbon sequestration, mapping the ocean floor, water generation,
oil cleanup.
The tricorder XPRIZE that Qualcomm funded, and I'm clear that there is nothing we cannot do within the laws of physics, and that's even got a little bit of asterisk there within those laws of physics as we understand them today versus what they'll be. So, I'm super interested in warp speed, warp drives, in teleportation, basically all the tech. And one of the things that I write about, and I have anybody here is a fan of my Moonshots podcast? Any people here in the audience? Great. So just recorded one this morning. And we're talking about the fact that AI is going to enable us to speed run Star Trek over the next decade. We're going to see in the near future the advanced levels of AGI, soon ASI, enable us to solve math, physics, biology, chemistry in a way that's going to accelerate scientific breakthroughs that no one's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, I guess physics at the Planck scale is beyond that. We're not sure what exists and how that works, and maybe there's all these different loopholes. Were you mentioning, I think it was 20 years ago, I think it was, it begins with an A, this drive that was theorized,
Yes,
warping space.
the EM drive.
Yeah, but it needs does it need negative matter that we still have discovered or something to make it work, or is that?
I think, so math is on the verge of falling, meaning the advanced models right now are beginning to solve mathematic principles, equations, and challenges that humans have not been able to do. And on the back of that comes physics. Yeah. So one of my moonshot mates, Alex Wiesner-Gross, who is our double PhD resident genius, is clear that within the next 2 years, we're going to have physics models that really enable Star Trek-like universe to materialize.
It's incredible. I mean,
say math fell for me a long time ago, but
I mean, it is sort of, it's clear we don't understand everything about the nature of reality. We can't unify quantum physics and gravity, and there's just missing pieces and all of that. And so I always feel like until we solve all those things, we don't know what we don't know. And if anything, I mean, we went from the Wright brothers to the moon in 60 years. I mean, everything with AI. I mean, it's like when you do look at Star Trek and you look at all the AI, it's always very flat emotionally, and this is not what we got with these LLMs. And I think that the future can surprise us.
Data got emotions eventually.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's true. You got the emotion chip in Star Trek 7, but that was like he had to get the chip for it. It didn't come baked in out of the box like we have with the LLMs. It is weird. It's uneven how these things sometimes roll out. But I do feel like, Peter, to your point, I mean, if you have and we're starting to see that with Claude being able to code stuff since November, and it is incredible. If it could do the research, if it could improve itself, there's no limits. I mean, we're not the limit anymore to how fast this can accelerate. Hopefully it's aligned, right? That's the important, hopeful part of all this. But it feels like...
Are we as a species capable of wielding that technology?
I mean,
that's a longer panel.
So I brought you guys both. This is my latest book. This one, Jules, is made out to you.
Oh, thank you.
Here you go. And this is for you, Rod. It's I wrote Abundance, the Future is Better Than You Think back in 2012, which, before abundance became a buzzword, showed how exponential technologies take what's ever scarce and makes it abundant over and over and over again. There's nothing truly scarce, period. That story has continued for 14 years. The subtitle here is A Survival Guide for the Age of Abundance. And so we've seen massive abundance, right? Increasing now the most precious, most powerful force in our known universe, intelligence, is now available effectively for free to 8 billion people with a smartphone. And abundance is exponentially continuing, but it's also giving us microplastics, extra carbon, depression, teen suicides, all these negative elements of abundance. And what I write about in the book here, We Are as Gods, is we have become godlike by definitions across the board. Right? It's extraordinary power. Stuart Brand wrote about this. We're becoming gods. We might as well get good at it. In 1968, that journey has continued. Right now, the most critical thing for us is the mindset we have that we maintain over this decade. Fear is the worst place for us to be encountering the future. When you're fearful, you're back on your haunches, you're not curious to learn, and you can be overwhelmed. So curiosity and purpose is hypercritical right now for this decade.
Education, yeah. Being aware. That's how you get rid of fear.
Yeah.
You learn.
And yet, though, there is, I mean, it's certainly, this is something where we want to be cautious as well. I mean, I find it always really interesting to read Anthropic's reports. I mean, they seem to be more so than OpenAI. They write these reports about how, Claude is like trying to escape or has these, I mean, it's obviously, it's got the...
Fear-based marketing, yes.
Sorry?
Fear-based marketing.
Maybe, I mean, it's, and that's the thing is, who knows, right? I mean, I will say that we are definitely dealing with something we've never had before. It's not even like nuclear weapons or anything like that. It just feels like, even the Claude bot or whatever, like, or having something erase your files, whatever, accidentally. I mean, there is definitely, I think care needs to be taken, but with that in mind, I think this technology is transformative, and hopefully, I mean, Star Trek had the post-scarcity future, right? I mean, the age of abundance feels like it's something that we should have, and we have had it in ways. I mean, not just intelligence, information. It used to cost money to get an encyclopedia, to call people, that weren't in your area code. I mean, all those things have just been erased. There's so many, I'm not sure that people even take full advantage of that, but all the information in the world is out there. And now you can have intelligence gather it for you, teach it to you, if you're so inclined. So those are all, definitely trend lines that I think could help. I mean, I think people are have options they never had before, even just from. I mean, I learned from LLMs in a way that normal searching or reading sometimes can't do. So it's to think about that being in everyone's hands.
Would you say that people need to be made aware as we get through this decade that they have these options? And I guess that's a tough question because it does depend on means and where you're from and opportunity.
One of the things that I find is most people self-limit themselves.
Yeah.
We have a tendency when we dream about what the future is like, we have this dream that's limited by where we were born, who our parents are, our socioeconomic status, which is ultimately wrong. These tools are enabling us to catapult ourselves way beyond that, right? So putting aside politics, what you think of him, the conversation I had with Elon, who I've known for 26 years, I did a podcast, a 3-hour podcast with him at the beginning of the year. And, we talked about the idea of achieving universal high income on the back of everything massively demonetizing, where you can have anything you want, anytime you want, anywhere you want, and access to all the food, water, energy, healthcare, education. And that is where we're heading. It's the transition to get there. Mm-hmm. And I just came back from a vacation in Morocco, and I had this tour guide, a young man who had bicycles and gave us a bicycle tour around this area. And I said, "What's the background?" He goes, "Well, I went on ChatGPT. I said, this is my skills. This is what I know how to do. Can you help me brainstorm a business?" And I was like, that was amazing. And yeah.
I mean, I'm not that familiar with universal high income, but it is. How does that work? Like, I mean, doesn't ultimately you need matter and energy, right, to fuel anything? So if that's not evenly distributed, how does it work?
So listen, in the end result, right? If we project everything out in a post-capitalist society, it is more like Star Trek. The cost of anything and everything reduces to energy, materials, and information. Right, so if I have a nanobot, Drexlerian, Eric Drexler, Engines of Creation, 1986 wrote about this, that can rearrange individual atoms, and I drop my nanobot into my hand, and I say, generate, 2 extra copies of yourself. I give one to each of you. I drop it into the soil, and I say, make me an electric Ferrari. The information is on the web or some version of it for free. It's a downloadable, free source of it. Energy is effectively free. We have 8,000 times more energy hitting the Earth's surface from the sun than we consume as a species. Material costs are, tens of dollars per kilogram in general across the board. And so the cost of something at that state is extraordinarily cheap. In the interim, where we get to is labor effectively being zero from robots, right? So today, if you need an extensive surgery, it's expensive. And you have to go find a great surgeon, you interview surgeons, and if you ever need to have surgery, there's one question you ask the surgeon when you're interviewing them. How many times did you do this surgery yesterday? Right? The frequency at which a surgeon does surgery is the #1 correlate with their success rate and their experience. If they've seen 1,000 cases versus 10 cases, so the next generations of Optimus or Figure or whatever robot is going to have a shared conscious experience, if you would, and have seen millions of surgical cases. And the cost of that robot is the capex and the cost of electricity. So surgery will effectively be massively demonetized. And we're going to see different stories like that across the board. And that gives us universal high income, meaning that the things we used to pay for no longer really cost anything.
It feels like we're going to need a movement, though, because it's still going to take, as I think both of you were saying earlier, our decision to make that happen, our decision to not take advantage of that new technology, that new ability to slap a price tag onto it.
Well, let me lay it out this way. In the next 2 years, and and I've written about this extensively, we're going to see a lot of social unrest. I believe that's the case. Unfortunately, I don't like it. The Future Vision XPRIZE and something called the Moonshot Hackathon that Tyler and I and XPRIZE are working on are meant to shorten, like in Asimov's Foundation series, shorten the period of darkness, if you would. We're going to have social unrest because today the group that's out of work the longest and has the least employment is age 22 to 25. So it's testosterone-laden men who can't get a job, can't get a house, can't get married, can't get a car, and that's a problem. And the only way that governments can solve that in the near term is writing checks. So we're going to see the same as the COVID checks, except they'll probably be larger. I think probably $3,000 per person per month to cover basics. But what happens on the backside of that? Technology is progressing. The profitability of companies start going through the roof because they're able to do much more with less people. The governments will tax those companies. They'll probably tax based upon how many agents and robots you have. That will generate more money to pay for the UBI. But what happens next is, rather than just having Waymo or Cybercab or Uber, the costs are getting down where there'll be 10 autonomous car companies, all competing, all driving the cost down. So you're going to have a demonetization curve across every industry because the cost of getting into a business is so much lower. And so that drives ultimately UHI in some form.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I have been hearing about an AI tax, which I guess would be one way of I mean, if there is sort of shifting of from labor into this, but I mean, it also just feels like how you still need laws to be passed, and of course that's a whole complicated process. But at least it seems like there's a plan that might account for these things. On the other hand, also, I mean, if you have if energy is solved, matter is solved, if you literally are able to tap into that, I mean, I'm curious, why haven't we built more solar if that's the answer?
There's a robot called Maxima. I reported this in my podcast last week. That is able physically deploys solar panels like every minute a new solar panel is deployed. I mean, we should be carpeting the Nevada desert in solar, which is ridiculous. I'm a pilot and I fly over Santa Monica from the airport there, and I look down, all the roofs are naked. There's no solar rarely any place. China's run circles around us.
It is crazy that we're not doing that because energy is obviously it's limited and we should have more of it. But I just wonder what the issue is. I mean, and states have different laws, right? I mean, it may be harder in California, but there's 50 states, and it seems like and then there's of course the idea of putting that in space, right? With including compute and all that. But I do feel like we should be cracking the energy problem because everything flows from that.
Yeah, energy is the innermost loop, and it is the scarce resource today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it not just a matter of cost in terms of people being able to afford to do that?
Well, that's the thing. I keep hearing that maybe the material, of course the materials for solar are going down.
I feel like I'm an audience member. I'm just watching these guys. This is fascinating.
No, I mean, you're deeply involved in a lot of these things. I learn from you all the time. I do feel though that I think that there's got to be more to why we haven't done more solar. And I think I was looking at materials costs have been an issue, or maybe there are legal issues to blanketing debt.
So part of it is a lot of the materials and electronics and such are imported from China. The industry hasn't stepped up. Elon committed to 100xing his solar side of both on Tesla and on SpaceX in terms of development costs. So the U.S. lost its industrial base over the last 30, 40 years to China, and we're reindustrializing here. I mean, it's very much one of the fundamental reasons. And then we've gone heavy on coal and oil and natural gas, which we have large supplies of. So I think it's a rebalancing that's coming. Fusion is here. We'll see the first fusion plants coming online 2030, 2033. We won't scale anywhere near as much as solar, and I agree. But I think if you want an investment thesis right now, it's investing in energy first and chips and data centers next.
I mean, if we crack fusion, we don't need solar, right? I mean, fusion would solve all that if it's crackable. But I've always felt this always 10 years away. But maybe this time Is it a company in the UK that is making products? Where do you see
for fusion?
Fusion, yeah.
There's Commonwealth Energy is probably the best funded. They're in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And then Helion is Sam Altman's fusion company. And then there's 37 VC-backed fusion companies right now.
Yeah, it feels like, when quantum computers were, I think when D-Wave was doing the first quantum computer, people were like, this is crazy. It'll never work. It's useless. And of course, now it's accepted that there's actually quantum computing might break the entire blockchain. It might break encryption. It's actually a real thing. So I wonder, whether keeping at these things with the persistence that I think you have with your pursuits scientifically will unravel some of these problems. But my understanding is if you do have fusion, it is an incredibly high source of energy, and therefore solar would not be as.
I mean, you're gonna see, 400 megawatt, 500 megawatt fusion plants, right? And it's like anything; you have to build a factory to build the fusion plants to get them populated. I still believe solar. I still believe solar is going to scale much faster than anything else.
Do you think it'll meet the demand in terms of AI? I mean, what's the strategy, or what do you see?
So, what I see is every major hyperscaler is buying their own power plants today, which is crazy, right? Google's invested in fusion. All the they're taking fission plants, nuclear plants that have been offline, and buying them and bringing them back online. But I don't see as much solar today, and China is like all solar. China has built like 10x more solar capacity per year than we have.
And the ability to store and distribute.
Storage and distribution has been the downside, but batteries today have gotten, I just reported on this that, traditional batteries have dropped by 99.9% in price. And we've got iron air batteries now, so grid level storage batteries are coming online.
A little bit off topic, but
no. These are, they're all selling it because, again, all of our rendering is powered by GPUs
going to the moon
in a data center. So it is all threaded together, and energy. One of the things that is definitely on a lot of people's minds is the contrarian approach, of course, to all the CI stuff is like, well, it is bad. It's not going to work. It's a fear-based thing, but also, it uses water, it uses energy. We're driving all these things. What's the value proposition? Now, I certainly can see the value, but I think there's a lot of people that are not convinced of it. And if we have the same thing with the blockchain, I'm like, well, a transaction on Solana is cheaper than a tweet, but people have ideas around certain things and it becomes locked in. But the one thing about intelligence is that if more energy equals more intelligence, wouldn't that be a resource you just want to keep piling more energy into to see where that leads? And that sort of is the...
Not if you're afraid of the intelligence.
Clearly we're not. We were just racing ahead. So, it is something that we just...
But we've seen 11 states in the U.S. basically ban data centers, right? So we just saw Maine, I think it's Maine, put a 18-month moratorium on data centers. A group in, where was it? In Wisconsin today, I think it was Wisconsin, basically fired the city council who had approved a data center. So we're seeing a lot of anger being aimed in this direction. And of course, this week we saw Sam Altman's home being firebombed and being shot at. So there's a serious discrepancy here. People fear AI and don't believe in the upside of it. And the reality is AI is going to double our human lifespan. It's going to enable us to have access to all the food, water, energy, health we need. It's the most extraordinary thing that is uplifting. It's labeling the playing field for humanity, right? We don't have the have and have-nots at the end of the day. We have the haves and some super haves.
If I can quickly ask, so what you just said, Peter...
That's important. I know you laughed at it, but we'll have... if we have trillionaires, living on Mars, I'm fine with that as long as 8 billion people on the planet also have access to all the food, water, energy, healthcare, education they need, right? We're lifting the floor for everybody, where you have access to whatever you need. It's true abundance. And if the wealth gap increases, but the floor is above the minimum for having a healthy, loving life, that's fine.
What do you recommend for people who need to jump that gap to get to what you just said, to know what you know, or at least get the idea of what you just said, from knowing very little about AI and being fearful of it?
Mentally?
What do you recommend? Well, what do you recommend?
Learning. It's the stuff I put out. That's my purpose, right? My Moonshots podcast and my books is to help educate people about the realities of this from a positive standpoint. You know, if you have to choose the mindsets you're coming at this from. And AI is the greatest educator in the world. You don't need to live any place or know anyone. You can self-educate effectively for free. It's an extraordinary leveling the playing field. Google leveled the playing field in information, right? Where it was the same information to Larry and Sergey's kids as the poorest child in the favela. It was identical. And we're seeing this occurring in intelligence as well. Just
with our last few minutes, I figured we talked a little bit at Star Trek proper, and obviously there were what, like 5 shows, now there's 0. There's changes. Where do you? Let's talk a little bit about how you want to see the franchise going forward and where you hope it is in a year or 2.
Listen, what I want, I'm a fan.
I know the answer, but
I'm connected. You know the answer. Yes.
Yeah. Just tell us, secrets.
Oh, the secrets. I don't have too many of those secrets. I can just tell you what I want, but I'm not necessarily in control of things. The kind of stuff that I think really inspires me are the shows that really allow you to see things from a different point of view, that don't necessarily have your twirling mustache bad guy. I hate to bring up another sci-fi movie that just came out, but Project Hail Mary was a fantastic movie. It didn't have a bad guy. It was sci-fi. It was true sci-fi. It wasn't popcorn sci-fi. And when I say popcorn sci-fi, yes, I am talking about Star Wars. I don't mean that in a derogatory way. It's fun. I grew up with Star Wars. I love it. But I want Star Trek to be the sci-fi that you're inspired by still.
He pitched to Star Trek. You heard about that, and he got turned down.
Well, we all make plenty of mistakes.
I'm sorry, who pitched to what?
Apparently Andy Weir pitched to Star Trek.
Pitched to Alex, I think, yeah.
Oh, well, I live and learn. So yes, I would love to have Andy Weir do Star Trek, or someone of his caliber, someone of his mindset. I would love the next Star Trek for us to walk out of that theater going like, just one of those feel-good things where there wasn't a bad guy. No one necessarily had to be killed in the end. There's complex characters, there's optimism, and we're taking that step forward into a positive future that Peter is describing to us.
And Rod and I and Jules, we're going to materialize.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Well, on that note, thank you both for being part of RenderCon and for this wonderful discussion about the future and a hopeful future at that. Thank you both.
All right. Can you use Octane to beam us out?
Yeah, I think we need a
video afterwards.
A little bit of technobabble in there, but yeah, we need.
And everyone has to go. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now you have to make that work.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, buddy.